We are discussing parenting generally. In part 1, we have described God as the ultimate parent. And we see Paul actually confirming this in Ephesians chapter 3, verse 14 and 15. For this reason, I knew before the Father, from whom his whole family in heaven and on earth derived its name. All fathers derive their name from the parenting of God. And so we emphasize the fact that you are supposed to parent as God would. And you're supposed to copy him. And that will be important. But I think we also emphasize the fact that children ultimately belong to God, not to any man or woman. And therefore, parents are actually stewards of what God has allocated to them for stewardship, managing well, bringing up, so that you can introduce into society somebody stable who can contribute to society and not a societal parasite. All that is the responsibility of parents. But now we want to discuss one of the key roles of parenting, which is to give a child the vision of the future. So the parent is a vision creator. He is the one who helps the child to see where they are coming from, where they are, and where they are likely to go. It gives the child, like we said, the child's glasses through which he interprets life. The worldview is all given as part of parenting. And they'll be given whether the parent is aware or not aware. They will still give this set of glasses that interpret life. But more importantly, it will also help the child to have certain images of the future that are attractive enough to help him to fight his way. Let me give, for example, one of the things that children have to do is to enter school. And if you enter the school at the age of 5, most likely at the age of 23, you'll still be in school non-stop. That's about 20 years of doing one thing without ever stopping. You need a very clear vision of why you are doing this for you to survive. And if you are like us who spent our early years, pre-colonial time in primary school, where the teachers believed the best teaching instrument is a stick or a belt, meant you really suffered in the process. They kept asking, since only a few those days in the 1950s and 60s, very few people were in school. The majority of your classmates are busy looking after cows and doing other things, and you wondered, why do I have to be here? You need a clarity of a vision that will make you see, wow, even if the teachers beat me, even if it's uncomfortable, there's something about what I want to see at the end that's worth making me bear all the pains from teachers and all the discomfort of waking very early when my friends may not necessarily have woken similarly early, having homework which you have to do when the year age mates are busy playing outside because you have to deliver work properly done the following day. So you require clarity, but that's where the parent has to play a big role of ensuring that the child understands their background. That's when the child is given a chance to deal with their grandparents, the parents of the father, and share information about the great-grandparents and their history. And remember the parent historical greats and what they did, what are they proud about. Things that give this child an identity, a cultural identity that helps him to vision into the future. It would be a pity if you can't help your child to go to at least 4 or 5 generations of where he has come from, and the achievements people have done, the mistakes they did, and how they were corrected, so that your child is not condemned to repeat the mistakes of the past as he looks into the future. The parent is the one who gives the child the glasses to look in the future, but he does that by helping him to clear with the past. And that's why it will be a pity if as a parent you do not give your children a chance to meet their grandparents and the grandparents if they are alive. And if the great-grandparents and the grandparents do not spend time creating this picture of the past and the achievement of the past about this child's project. Obviously, there are some things in the past that will not have been right, but you must tell them in such a way that there's a lesson this child can learn from that history. So it's the work of the parent to create that history, in creating a cultural identity for the child. What do you tell your child about your own life? What are the challenges you went through as you are growing up? How did you deal with them? How have the challenges you went through been beneficial in the way you live your life now? That's the work of the parent to share, because in the process you are gaining stamina. One of the stories my mother told me is about the fact that she lost her mother when she was very young. Is her brother, who was only 3 or 4 years older than her, who was her closest. And although she came from a big polygamous family, there were just left two of them by their mother. She talks about how her father loved her, and although she was being molested by the other wives of the father, she knew her father loved her and would protect her. In fact, at one time, the father felt the wives were not looking after this girl very well and took the child to her grandmother. The grandmother, that's the mother of the dead wife. So my mother stayed with the grandmother for a while. But even when she was in her grandmother's place, she knew her father loved her, and her father came and brought a dress. Of course, those days there were skin dresses, and she can still remember it. And she just died not too long ago, and she could still remember it. And she told me the story. And what is it communicating? The importance of the father's love that will make her go through the challenges of her early childhood, and the relationship with the brothers, and how she waited before getting married because she wanted her dowry to be the dowry that will be used to help my uncle, her brother, to get a wife also. And that's really what happened. I'm told that by my uncles about how it all went well. Now that puts in me the importance of the family and the challenges you go through early in life do not bring you to nothing, because my mother ended up to be a great woman, a leader in the church. Now, but that is the background she came from, where she lost her parents and had difficulty with the dead parents' co-wife, but she was able to go through it and withstand the challenges she had to. Now that's what the kind of thing you need to be sharing with your children, that would create values. Like my mother certainly must have intended for me to get values of the family, the importance of the family, the importance of your sibling, the importance of a father being caring about a child, even if you are not as close as your wife would be, but the importance of the mother can go, and the father would still have to ensure that the child grows well. And I think that's a very, very important part of what you need to share with your children. Pick out things that have happened in the family's history that will make your child start gaining values that will help him to face whatever future he actually has. So you share the history of your family, but you also share the history of the clan and the wider group. Then you share the history of your tribe. Then you share the history of your country, the way from your perspective, so that the child can understand and be proud to become a nationalist, somebody who can go to war to defend his country, somebody who understands the importance of not being a societal parasite, but becoming somebody who can be trusted to defend his own nation. All that is part of your parenting role. But out of all that will be, like we said at the beginning, to get the child to understand, where does God come in the family history, with the tragedies and successes of the family? Where does God come in? That you want in that way to show the value of God and the importance of God and how God intervenes, even when your closest fails you. There is one who is closer than a brother, God himself. And the child must grow knowing that even if they were to be disappointed in you as a parent, they can run to God, and God does hear prayers. Why don't you share your testimony about the things God has done for you, how you prayed and how he intervened, and that he is no respecter of persons. He can intervene. And as a child grows hearing these prayers and answer to prayers, he grows knowing that even in the worst case scenario, when everybody forsakes you, there is one who cannot forsake you, your Creator and God. And so it's the parents' responsibility, which is what Deuteronomy chapter 6 is telling parents. It's their responsibility, not the Sunday school teacher, not the pastor, but the parent, to get the child to understand who God is and value God and why we need God, using not theological lectures, but the testimonies of your life and what has happened that has helped you. But you don't just do that. It's the responsibility of the parent to discuss and explain today's events. Why do I go to school? Why did the teacher punish me? You need to be like the child's dictionary, the child's encyclopedia, so that whatever challenges they are going through initially, they know no one else they can trust. The teacher will say something, but then to know they can trust their parent. That's why you must get involved in their education. When the teacher says 2 + 2 is 4, you must emphasize it is true, it is 4. Now, but in addition to that, help to explain the things he's going through. The child is sick. Explain what it means to be sick. The place of the doctor. Where does God come in if the doctor is the one treating? That all needs to be explained. And so here, you don't use historical issues. You use the challenges that you are going through. Let the child know that your money does not just drop from the sky. They need to know that there's a God who actually meets the needs of the family, and you need to understand that one of the ways God meets the need of the family is to give you opportunity to work, opportunity to invest in business. And right from the young days, they must know the value of work and the dangers of being idle, the dangers of being lazy, and where God comes in all that. But now you are not using history. You're using the things the child is seeing on a day-to-day basis. And in the process, the child will understand, and you get every opportunity. And I heard somebody talking about parenting saying that those moments are not always. When a child comes to ask you a question, it's a moment that may never come again. You must grab the moment, because it means it's a learning time. Other times you may talk and the child is not even listening. And even if he looks like listening, his mind is elsewhere. But when he comes to ask a question, there's a moment he asks you a question, and you know this is the time to share. And it will be important to share, because those are the things you remember for life. You are forming his attitude to the future. And so you need to use very clearly the things that that you are going through on a daily basis in order to build up. But thirdly and importantly, it will be important to create a vision of what God expects of him into the future. Acts chapter 13 verse 36 says, "For when David had served God's purpose in his own generation, he fell asleep. He was buried with his father, and his body decayed." This is a life story of King David, summarized in one sentence. For when David had served God's purpose in his own generation, he fell asleep, he was buried, his father and his body decayed. What does God want us to know? That everybody born, just like David, has a purpose. There's a reason why he was born. And this guy was born in order to be a shepherd of God's people. The Bible tells us elsewhere. So that's the vision of David, the purpose for being created. Now, every child born has a purpose. And the things you'll be doing, even after the parents are dead, you'll still be fulfilling that purpose. God is not in the business of making junk. He does not make a child and then leave the child to just group with nothing. Why? Because in that child, there will be some gifting that is in line with the vision God has for him, with the calling. So he gifts you, not for nothing, but so that because there is something you need to fulfill. Your gifting is so that you can fulfill a purpose. And it's a responsibility of the parent to help the child to know that we are all uniquely born. The parent's purpose is not the child's purpose. The sister's purpose is not the brother's purpose. There is something specific. Just listen to what we are learning about David. For when David had served God's purpose, it means that David, son of Jesse, had God's purpose. Please note, it's not the parents' purpose. And parents have to hear this widely, clearly. Your child was not born to fulfill your purpose. You had a purpose yourself, fulfill it. Your child cannot help you fulfill it. There is a reason this child was born, and the reason was not to copy you. So the responsibility of the parent is not to ask the child to copy him. It's to help the child to explore. Why am I born? What are the giftings God has given me? How does God want me to use those gifts? It's the responsibility of the parent to help. But please understand, the purpose for your child is not the parent's purpose. Jesse's purpose was not the one that David fulfills. Listen, for when David had served God's purpose, not Jesse's purpose. So you as a parent, you have to, maybe you wanted to be a lawyer. Do not try to make your child become a lawyer to fulfill the debt you think you had. No. Your child has a specific purpose, and that purpose is God's purpose, not your purpose. But even more interesting is that the purpose that we are talking about is not the child's interests. It's not enough to say the child is interested in being a doctor. No, you need to look further. Because here the Bible doesn't say, and when David had served his purpose. No. It's not David's purpose that was fulfilled. It's God's purpose for David. So it's God who has a purpose for you. So you don't just do what you feel like doing it. You don't just do what brings most money. You don't just do what sounds more exciting. You do what you have a conviction is the reason why you are created. And it's the responsibility of the parent to help the child to see that they should not be trying to do what the uncle does. They should not be trying to do what the celebrity does. They should seek to hear God's answer to the question, why was I created? Why was I born? What am I to do for the next many years? If I die at the age of 80, there may be another 70 years to go for this child. What is expected of me? What am I supposed to be fulfilling? And that will be very important. So it's the child, it's the responsibility of the parent to help the child to go through this. And on a regular basis, please let him think. Let him find out what direction is God leading him. And the responsibility of the parent is to support that purpose, not to interfere with it, not to force a child to do a certain career or to do what brings most money. No. It's to fulfill God's purpose. I believe strongly that if you follow God's purpose, you will not lack food, because He knows you need food. So even if the purpose you are following does not look great, does not look like it will enrich you, rest assured all your needs will be met. Isn't that what He says in Philippians chapter 4 verse 19? And my God shall supply all your needs according to His riches in glory. So it's the role of the parent to help this child to look in the future, understand that future, and understand what his purpose is. I think it's the same thing that Proverbs 22 verse 6 is saying. Train a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart, he will not turn from it. Do you hear? People normally quote this and then interpret it to mean give a child the direction. No. The child is not supposed to be given direction by the parents. Listen to the verse again. Train a child the way he should go. The way he should go. Not the way you went. Not the way you want him to go. The way God expects him to go. Train up a child the way he should go. And you are promised when he is old, he will not turn from it. The most important thing is the child must understand he is supposed to be alive to follow God's way for his purpose. God's purpose. And if you teach him the importance of following God's purpose, he will not depart from it, even later in life. So, you as a parent are accountable to God on what you do with your child, not the society. Oh, my son is a lawyer. No. You are not accountable to the society. You are accountable to God as to whether you help the child to become what God created him to be. And you have a problem with God if you end up leading your child to an area which is not his calling. And many parents do that. They force their children to do the degree that brings more money or more fame. He does not care about the life of the child. He cares about his own life, to be able to say, my son is a doctor. But the child doesn't like to be a doctor. But you feel proud telling others, wow, my son is a doctor. That is really exploitative. Get your identity on yourself. Do not get your identity from your child. So do not start thinking you are who you are because your child is who he is. You are different from your child. You are a steward. You have helped him to go his way. But the important thing is you yourself must fulfill your purpose. And the reason God will tell you well done is not because of what your child became, but what you yourself became. How have you used your life to be a blessing, not only to your children, but to everybody that God brings your way? So as a parent, it will be very, very important that you understand that it's your responsibility to assist the child to have clarity about the future, about his vision, what he's supposed to live in life to achieve. Genesis 22 verse 12 says, you do not own the child. Just listen to this. Do not lay a hand on the boy, he said. That's God talking to Abraham. Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your own son, your only son. This is very interesting. God has allocated Isaac, the promised child, to Abraham. Then Abraham says, God says, I want the child back. And we are told how Abraham is commended, because he knew this is God's child, so he gave back the child to God. And where we are reading in Genesis chapter 22, he is just about to cut the child. And God stops him. And I think that will be very, very important to understand. So please understand that your child is not your investment to get a return on investment. You do not help your child so that they will pay you. You do not help your child so that they will look after you in old age. You help them so that they will fulfill God's purpose. How you are treated in old age is really God's responsibility. He can use your child, not you use your child. You are God's responsibility. Trust God to take care of you in old age. That's otherwise, if Abraham thought that his future totally depended on this child, he would have disobeyed God. But he knew a child is not an investment, but a responsibility. He also knew that a child is not your identity. He has a separate identity from the child. Like Abraham, do to him only what the owner wants you done to him. So when the owner says stop, you stop. When the owner says sacrifice him, you sacrifice him. Because you are not the owner. God is the owner. So, what are we saying? That one of the major parental role is to help a child to get his own identity, number one. Number two, to help a child to have a clear something to live for and die for. To discover his calling, his purpose in life. And so he lives the rest of his life in order to fulfill that purpose. And we have emphasized the fact that the temptation is to force the child to do what you want him to do, but you have learned the child does not belong to you. He belongs to God. Your responsibility is to help him to meet that purpose. Do you know your own life's purpose? Can you tell me what your purpose is? Can you tell me what you'll be? Can you give me your 80th birthday evaluation? What you have achieved by then? What do you hear God saying you are supposed to achieve? Can you also tell me what your core values are? Because if you don't even have a vision, how will you have core values? Can you also give me your mission statement? In other words, this is what I will do in order to achieve this vision. That's what you have supposed to help your child. Your child at a very early time must start knowing their vision, what they will have achieved by the time they die, their mission, what they need to do in order to achieve it, and their core values. What are the limitations to achieving that? Those are the core values. They are so important that you are willing to fail rather than break them. That's really what we are talking about. And it's very clear that if you in Swahili they say fundishwa na mamaye atafundishwa na dunia. In other words, if parents don't do their job, the child will grow up in the darkness in society, and the society will make him suffer. It's the responsibility of you as a parent to give this vision so that a child at very early time understands he is valuable and he has a reason to live, and therefore he has no time to waste. Right from early life, he lives to honor God and to praise him because he has a reason why he should be alive. That will be important. So help your child to know, to have a vision, and assist him until he is clear, and then try help to prepare for that life or for that calling, so that even if it's not a calling you like, you don't admire it, but it's not you being asked to do it, it's the child. Let the child do whatever God has called him to do, and see how wonderful it will be when he lives the rest of his life to fulfill it and bring glory to God in all the things that he is doing. May the Lord help us to experience, to truly see one of our major deliverables is to help the child to discover his purpose.